Start eating.
You want to take that line again, buddy? No? Well, alright then. I guess that's the take. Sheesh. Originally released in 2005 for the PlayStation 2 as Ryu Ga Gotoku, which roughly translates to Like a Dragon, this game would see a Western release in 2006 and renamed Yakuza. This first entry in the Yakuza series focuses on the legendary mobster Kazuma Kiryu as he takes the fall for his friend Akira Nishikiyama, who murders his boss Sohei Dojima for the attempted rape of his partner Yumi Sawamura. Kiryu serves 10 years in prison and is expelled from his gang the Tojo clan, and upon release he is thrust into a gang war between different Yakuza clans that has been sparked by the death of the third chairman, Masaru Sera. The game takes the form of a third-person open-world action title that features light RPG mechanics, like a levelling system and side quests. The main campaign is always signposted on the game's minimap if you want to focus on the game's story, but you often get the freedom to explore and do other stuff like play minigames or seek out side quests. Being a 2005 PS2 title, the scope of this first game is a little more restrained when compared to the games that follow it, but an awful lot of mainstay Yakuza features debut here, and mechanically the game is instantly recognisable with a similar gameplay loop to that of the more modern entries. The game's big focus is on its story, which is super melodramatic but also pretty engaging thanks to its memorable cast of characters. The 2006 Western version of the game also features a fully voiced English dub, featuring actors like Michael Madsen as Kazuma Kiryu and Mark Hamill as Goro Majima, but sadly it's a pretty rushed effort and everyone sounds like they were recorded on the first take, and they're all a bit uninterested as a result. It's nice that Sega made the effort, and it definitely has an appeal, as Sega are definitely known for their hammy English dubs. I'm looking at you, House of the Dead 2. But a game with this much story and drama really deserves some better performances from its voice cast, especially when Yakuza's most lauded feature is definitely its story. The story still holds up nowadays, and it'll be the main reason why you stick with this version if you're new to the franchise. As the story progresses and you explore the city of Kamurocho, you will repeatedly get into multi-man scraps. When you get into fights, you're tasked with taking down multiple enemies with melee combat, and there's a nice deep combat system at play with multiple combos and many more to unlock. You can also grab enemies, pick up weapons, and use a dedicated heat gauge to execute powerful attacks and finishes. The combat holds up well despite one major oversight: there's no lock-on mechanic in this version. You often find yourself wildly flailing about performing combos on thin air, as Kiryu doesn't auto-focus on any particular enemy. You can lock him in place and strafe while holding a shoulder button, but it doesn't focus you in on a specific enemy, which becomes quite frustrating to deal with. The game is also hindered by its chosen platform. Kamurocho is a beautifully rendered and convincing portrayal of a dense, living city with multiple NPCs going about their daily lives, but in order to fit all that detail into a PS2 game, they've had to lock the camera in place and split the city into chunks that have to load in as you cross into each area. It makes the game feel a bit slow and awkward when you're exploring, and as a result you often don't feel the urge to explore as much as later entries in the series. There aren't as many mini-games to engage in either, and with fewer extracurricular activities to do, the original Yakuza feels quite brief. So is there a reason to return to this original entry nowadays? Well, thankfully the story does hold up, and if you have an appreciation for the camp, then the English dub is good for a laugh. But really, this is a tough game to return to, and there are many better ways to play it in this day and age. The game was remastered in HD and bundled with Yakuza 2 as Ryu Ga Gotoku 1 and 2 HD edition for PS3 and Wii U in 2012, but only released in Japan. It would get a full worldwide remake as Yakuza Kiwami in 2016 and released on PS3, PS4 and then later on PC, Xbox One and Nintendo Switch. Yakuza Kiwami allows you to explore the entire city with no loading times and use a full 3D camera to view the action. It also runs in much higher frame rates and with faster loading times, along with adding new features like Majima Everywhere, which makes Goro Majima a constant threat throughout the game, and he will now challenge you to repeated fights. Winning these will grant Kiryu access to new abilities in his dragon fighting style, which is now one of 4 different fighting styles that you can utilise. These versions definitely make the original PS2 game feel a little redundant to anyone who isn't a die-hard Yakuza fan who needs to own every entry. But the original release is definitely an interesting curiosity that establishes a lot of features that have become pretty iconic to the series. As the franchise continues, the developers really focus in on the good stuff and refine it so effectively that all the ambition of this first game is now fully realised, and you'll likely want to play Yakuza Kiwami if you want to enjoy the best bits of the original game without all of the negatives that come with this original PS2 version. There's only so much loading, sluggish performance and wonky combat a man can experience. There's a great story in here, but the overall product is a tough one to love.